Hey Fat Friends, Kristen here. Today we're going to talk about kayaks. My name is Kristen, and this channel is for fat girls and others wanting to get outside but needing information and solutions for doing so. The outdoor industry has failed to realize that we exist, and we got to figure our own crap out. So let me help you with that and show you what I've learned along the way, and you can help me and others with what you've learned along the way. Kayaking. Is it for fat people? The answer is yes. Definitely yes. Kayaking is my favorite pastime, and in getting started, I have learned so much and want to help you choose a kayak that will work for you. It's very important to make sure that the equipment that you start with will work for you, because if you try with equipment that won't work for you, then you'll just think the sport or the activity is not something that you would like to do. For today's purposes, we're talking about recreational kayaks, not whitewater kayaks. So for recreational kayaks, there are two main types: sit inside kayaks and sit on top kayaks. So the first thing you'll need to decide is whether you want a sit on top kayak or a sit inside kayak. You kind of need to think about what you'll want to do with it. Do you want to paddle around a lake or a pond somewhere? Do you want to paddle for exercise? Do you want to go on adventures? Do you want to fish? So when you're thinking about what kind of kayak you want, you need to think about what you want to do with it. My personal favorite thing to do is kayak camping and spend 3 or 4 days going down the river with all my gear and living on the side of the river. I also like to kayak fish, and oftentimes we'll just go paddle for fun or leisure. So let's talk about the benefits of a sit inside kayak for a minute. So the benefits of sit inside kayaks, number one, are they're faster, cut through the water better. They are just generally faster than sit on top kayaks. Most inside kayaks have dry hatches, and you can put gear in there that you want to try to keep dry. Not really, because everything gets wet in a kayak. And there are lots of myths out there about sit inside kayaks, such as the cockpit is small, or you'll feel claustrophobic, or you wouldn't be able to get out if you needed to. And those things generally don't apply to recreational kayaks, more so to whitewater kayaks. Because sit inside kayaks are faster, sit in the water than on the water, they're easier to paddle and easier to maneuver than sit on top kayaks. Keep in mind, these are generalizations, and there may be sit on top kayaks that are easier to paddle than sit inside kayaks. But in general, sit inside kayaks go faster and further with every paddle stroke. So some of the benefits of sit on top kayaks are, one, many sit on top kayaks are made for fishing and fishing gear and have a much higher weight rating than a sit inside kayak. They do not come up and around you, and you don't feel as enclosed. So many people who don't like enclosed spaces prefer a sit on top kayak. Sit on top kayaks often seem more stable than a sit inside kayak. There is a thing called primary stability and secondary stability, and sit on top kayaks often initially seem more stable than a sit inside kayak. A sit inside kayak is initially going to feel more tippy than a sit on top kayak. But in reality, when the secondary stability comes into play, if you have the right kayak for your body, a sit inside kayak is not any more tippier than a sit on top kayak. So what kayaks do I think work for fat people? Before I answer, remember, I am not an expert. The kayaks mentioned here are the ones I found in my own search that worked for me, or that I thought might work. Please consult a reputable retailer and make sure you try before buying. 3 sit inside kayaks that I think will work well for bigger people are the Old Town Loon 126. It has the highest weight capacity at 450 pounds. The cockpit is 23 inches wide, and the kayak itself weighs 59 pounds. The next one is the Wilderness Aspire 105. It has a weight rating of 400 pounds, a cockpit opening of 23.5 inches, and the kayak weighs 48 pounds. It has a cool skeg that helps the kayak track straight, and it's the shortest in length of these three kayaks, which means it's a little more maneuverable. The kayak I paddle that's a sit-inside kayak is the Wilderness Pungo 125. It has a weight capacity of 425 pounds, a cockpit opening of 29 inches. The kayak itself weighs 53 pounds. So let's talk sit-on-top kayaks now. As you may have noticed, the kayaks in this list are mostly fishing kayaks. That's because most sit-on-tops that have a 400-pound plus weight capacity are designed for fishing. Because fishing kayaks are so similar, I'm just going to talk in general about them rather than go into each kayak's features. The Bonafide SS 127, the Feel Free Lure 13.5, this is what I paddle, the Wilderness Thresher 140, the Wilderness Radar 135, the Jackson Coosa HD, and the Perception Outlaw. Let me tell you about two more options that don't quite fit into either category. The first one is the Jackson Kilroy, and the second one is the Old Town Next. They're kind of like canoe-kayak hybrids, with the Kilroy being more kayak-like, and the Old Town Next being more canoe-like. The Old Town Next has foot pegs and a seat like a kayak, and paddles with a double-bladed paddle like a kayak. The Kilroy, on the other hand, is open all the way through, kind of like a canoe, but covered on the bow and stern like a kayak. In fact, the Kilroy is my next purchase. So let's talk about some concerns or fears we have about kayaking as a bigger person. The main one that I had in the beginning was, what if I tip? And now that I've been kayaking for 5 years, I haven't found that I tip that often. But there's a few things to have in place to make sure that you are safe if you tip. Number one is wear your PFD. Number two is to have your stuff tied down or attached to your boat in some way. Number three is to be wearing the right clothing, and we'll talk about that in a future video. Number four is to make sure that somebody knows where you are, that you're with friends, or that somebody knows that you've gone to the water and you're in your kayak. I always think the buddy system is the best way. And number three is be prepared to get wet. That way you have dry clothes and dry shoes and things like that. What kayak do you paddle, and what have you found that works for you? Comment below and let us know. Also, if you have found this video useful, please like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what else you'd like to hear about. Remember, the fat doors is for out, buddy. Remember, the outdoors is for everybody.